In the shadowy corners of early Christian thought, a sinister belief took root. Whispers spoke of Yaldabaoth, a false god who spun a web of deception, creating our physical world to ensnare humanity. This demiurge, with his lion's face and serpent's body, declared himself the one true god, yet he was but a pretender. But there was hope. The serpent in the garden, far from being a mere tempter, was seen as a messenger of Sophia, the divine feminine, urging humanity to awaken from the demiurge's deception. Jesus Christ, the harbinger of truth, descended to our realm with a mission. He came to shatter the chains of this false god, to unveil the hidden path to the true God beyond the material veil. In the teachings of the Gnostics, Jesus was not merely a savior but a revealer of divine knowledge, offering a direct personal connection to the true source of all creation. These revelations cast a long and ominous shadow over the early church. The Gnostic belief in a direct communion with the divine threatened the very foundation of ecclesiastical power. The church, fearing the loss of its authority, branded these teachings as heresy, determined to silence the voices that dared to reveal the unsettling truth. Prepare to delve into the depths of these ancient secrets, to uncover the forgotten story of the demiurge and the fight for spiritual liberation. We are all familiar with the myths of the Old Testament, the jealous God who cast Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden and who flooded the earth to end humanity. But in early Christianity, a different myth took root, one which painted the Old Testament God as something sinister and dark. Sophia, the divine feminine, held a place of immense importance in early Christian thought. She was an emanation of the true God, representing wisdom and the nurturing aspects of divinity. Yet her story is one of both creation and tragedy. Driven by an insatiable quest for wisdom, Sophia defied the will of the true God. In her desire to understand the depths of the divine, she acted independently, birthing a son without the consent of the divine Pleroma. This son, Yaldabaoth, was malformed and ignorant, with the face of a lion and the body of a serpent. Cast out from the divine realm, Yaldabaoth found himself in the vast, desolate void. In his confusion and arrogance, he began to create, fashioning a material world from his own flawed essence. He crafted the physical universe, a realm of shadows and illusions, and populated it with beings made in his own image. Yaldabaoth, unaware of the higher spiritual realities, declared himself the one true God. In his ignorance, he reveled in his creation, seeing himself as the ultimate authority. He demanded worship and obedience from the souls trapped within his fabricated cosmos, insisting on their subservience. His jealousy and wrath knew no bounds. He set strict laws and punished those who defied him with suffering and torment. Yaldabaoth delighted in the subjugation of his creations, deriving perverse pleasure from their struggles and despair. He created a world filled with pain and illusion, a prison designed to keep the divine sparks in a state of forgetfulness, ensuring they remained unaware of their true origin and potential. Yet Sophia, remorseful and anguished by her rebellious act, saw the plight of the divine sparks trapped in Yaldabaoth's world. These sparks, fragments of the true divine light, were imprisoned in mortal forms, lost and unaware of their origin. In her compassion, Sophia sought to rectify her mistake, imbuing humanity with a hidden glimmer of the divine. Sophia's tale, intertwined with the creation of Yaldabaoth, highlights the central role of the divine feminine in early Christian Gnostic thought, a role that was eventually obscured and almost lost to time. In the Gnostic tradition, the story of the Garden of Eden takes on a darker, more sinister aspect. The serpent, often vilified in the Orthodox Christian narrative, is reimagined as a messenger of Sophia. Far from being a mere tempter, the serpent is a bearer of divine wisdom, sent to awaken humanity from the shackles of ignorance imposed by Yaldabaoth. Adam and Eve, the first humans, lived in a state of blissful ignorance, unaware of their true divine nature. They were prisoners in a beautiful but deceptive garden, created by the false god Yaldabaoth. The serpent, embodying the spirit of Sophia, sought to bestow upon them the gift of true knowledge, Gnosis. This knowledge was the key to recognizing their divine spark and understanding the illusion of the material world. Approaching Eve, the serpent whispered secrets of the divine, urging her to eat from the tree of knowledge. It was an act of rebellion against the tyrannical Yaldabaoth, a defiance of his imposed ignorance. By partaking of the forbidden fruit, Eve and subsequently Adam began to awaken to their true nature, seeing the world for the prison it was. This act of enlightenment infuriated Yaldabaoth, who responded with wrath and jealousy. He cast Adam and Eve out of the garden, condemning them to a life of suffering and toil. Yet this punishment was also the beginning of their journey towards true spiritual awakening. The Gnostics saw this expulsion not as a fall from grace, but as a necessary step towards liberation from the false god's dominion. The wrathful, angry, and jealous god of the Old Testament, Yaldabaoth, is portrayed in Gnostic belief as a false god whose actions were driven by a desire to maintain control over his creation. His laws were harsh, his punishments severe, all designed to keep humanity in fear and subjugation. This god delighted in cruelty, demanding absolute obedience and reveling in the misery of those who defied him. In stark contrast, the teachings of Jesus in the Gnostic tradition offer a path to liberation and enlightenment. Jesus reveals the truth about Yaldabaoth, exposing him as a deceiver and a tyrant. He teaches that true salvation lies in awakening to one's divine nature and seeking direct communion with the true God. The Gnostic Jesus is a figure of rebellion against the false god, a beacon of hope for those seeking to escape the material world's illusions. This reinterpretation of biblical events challenges the very foundation of Orthodox Christian doctrine. It positions Yaldabaoth as the antithesis of the true God, explaining the seemingly cruel and jealous actions of the Old Testament deity. This narrative highlights the stark contrast between the wrathful God of old and the teachings of love and enlightenment brought by Jesus. In the tumultuous early centuries of Christianity, the fledgling religion faced immense challenges. Emerging in a world dominated by Roman polytheism, early Christians were often persecuted for their beliefs, forced to practice their faith in secret. They gathered in hidden places, sharing sacred texts and rituals that spoke of a new kind of salvation and a radical understanding of the divine. Despite the persecution, Christianity began to spread, carried by devoted followers who risked their lives to share their faith. The message of Jesus resonated with many, offering hope and redemption in a time of great turmoil. Over time, the movement grew stronger, eventually gaining the attention of the Roman Empire. By the early 4th century, Emperor Constantine embraced Christianity, leading to its widespread acceptance and the eventual establishment of the Church as a dominant religious force. As Christianity evolved, different interpretations of its core messages emerged, giving rise to diverse and often conflicting beliefs. Among these early Christian sects, the Gnostics stood out with their profound and unsettling views. They believed that the physical world was not a creation of the true God, but a prison crafted by a false god, Yaldabaoth. To the Gnostics, Yaldabaoth's creation was a shadowy, deceptive realm, designed to keep humanity blind to its own divinity. They believed that the true God existed beyond the material world, in a realm of pure light and wisdom, known as the Pleroma. This higher God was unreachable through ordinary means, hidden from those who remained ensnared in the illusions of the physical world. Gnostic teachings revealed that salvation lay in awakening to one's divine nature, in recognizing the spark of true light within. This awakening, or gnosis, was the key to breaking free from Yaldabaoth's control and returning to the Pleroma. It was a path of inner transformation, guided by the revelations brought by Jesus, the harbinger of truth. The emergence of these Gnostic beliefs created a profound spiritual conflict within early Christianity. They offered a radically different understanding of the nature of the divine and the purpose of human existence, one that directly challenged the authority and teachings of the Orthodox Church. This clash of beliefs set the stage for a fierce struggle for the soul of Christianity, a struggle that would shape the course of religious history and leave an indelible mark on the spiritual landscape of the ancient world. The rise of Gnosticism and its challenge to the established order revealed the deep and enduring questions about the nature of reality, the divine, and the path to true enlightenment. In the dimly lit rooms and hidden gathering places of early Christian Gnostic communities, a profound sense of mystery and reverence filled the air. These early believers sought something far deeper than the surface-level teachings of the Orthodox Church. They yearned for gnosis, an intimate personal knowledge of the true God, transcending the physical realm and the false god Yaldabaoth. For the Gnostics, gnosis was not merely intellectual understanding, but a transformative mystical experience. They believed that through direct personal revelation, Jesus Christ unveiled the secrets of the divine. His teachings, preserved in Gnostic texts, spoke of an inner kingdom of God, a realm of light and truth accessible through deep spiritual awakening. The pursuit of gnosis was an inward journey, a path of self-discovery and inner transformation. Gnostic Christians engaged in meditation, contemplation, and other spiritual practices designed to strip away the deceptions of the material world. In their rituals, often shrouded in secrecy, they sought to connect directly with the divine spark within, believing that this inner light was a fragment of the true God. These gatherings were more than just communal worship. They were sacred acts of rebellion against the false god's dominion. The air was thick with incense, the flicker of candlelight casting long shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere charged with spiritual intensity. Here, initiates were welcomed into deeper mysteries, participating in rites that symbolized their journey from ignorance to enlightenment. The Gnostic view of Jesus was revolutionary. He was seen not as a distant savior, but as a divine emissary who imparted hidden wisdom. His parables and teachings, found in texts like the Gospel of Thomas, were cryptic messages meant to awaken the divine spark within each individual. Followers were encouraged to seek the inner light, to find the true God within themselves, beyond the reach of Yaldabaoth's deceit. In these mystical pursuits, Gnostic Christians found profound hope and purpose. They believed that by awakening to their true nature, they could transcend the suffering and deception of the material world and return to the pleroma, the realm of pure light and wisdom. This path of inner transformation and direct communion with the divine challenged conventional notions of faith and salvation, leaving a legacy of spiritual rebellion that would echo through the ages. The Gnostics revered a collection of sacred texts, writings that offered profound insights into the mysteries of the divine and the nature of existence. These texts, excluded from the official canon of the Bible, became the cornerstone of Gnostic belief and practice. Among the most significant were the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary, and the Apocryphon of John. The Gospel of Thomas, a collection of sayings attributed to Jesus, was not a narrative of his life, but a compilation of his teachings. It depicted Jesus as a spiritual guide whose words were keys to unlocking the hidden divine within each person. "The kingdom of God is within you," he proclaimed, urging seekers to look inward for enlightenment. The Gospel of Mary presented a different perspective, highlighting the role of Mary Magdalene as a prominent disciple who received secret teachings from Jesus. This text emphasized the importance of inner vision and spiritual insight, challenging the patriarchal structures of the early church and elevating the divine feminine. It presented Mary as a spiritual equal to the male disciples and a direct conduit of divine wisdom. This elevation of Mary Magdalene paralleled the reverence for Sophia, the divine feminine aspect of God, who was central to the Gnostic creation myth and cosmology. The Apocryphon of John provided a detailed account of the creation of the world, the fall of Sophia, and the rise of Yaldabaoth. It described the cosmic struggle between the forces of light and darkness, revealing the hidden knowledge necessary for spiritual liberation. This text, filled with intricate cosmology and rich symbolism, connected Gnostic beliefs to earlier philosophies and traditions such as Hermeticism. Hermeticism, with its roots in the teachings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, shared many similarities with Gnosticism. Both traditions emphasized the pursuit of divine knowledge and the belief in a higher hidden reality. The Hermetic texts spoke of the divine mind, the unity of all existence, and the process of spiritual ascension, concepts that resonated deeply with Gnostic thought. These Gnostic texts and their ties to earlier philosophies created a foundation of spiritual wisdom that guided the Gnostic communities. They provided a roadmap for the soul's journey from ignorance to enlightenment, offering detailed instructions on how to awaken the divine spark within and escape the illusions of the material world. Through these sacred writings, the Gnostics cultivated a profound spiritual tradition, distinct from the orthodox Christianity that would come to dominate. Their quest for hidden knowledge and inner transformation set them on a unique spiritual path, one that would influence and inspire future generations. In the shadowy gatherings of early Christian communities, a remarkable practice took root, one that starkly contrasted with the hierarchical structure that would later define the established church. These early groups lacked a formal hierarchy, fostering a sense of equality and communal worship that was both radical and subversive. In these intimate assemblies, individuals took turns in the role of priest, sharing the responsibilities of leading prayers, conducting rituals, and interpreting sacred texts. This rotation of leadership ensured that no single person held authority over others, embodying the belief that every believer had direct access to the divine. The air was thick with a sense of shared purpose and spiritual unity, as each member contributed to the collective quest for gnosis. This egalitarian approach threatened the emerging structure of the Orthodox Church, which was becoming increasingly organized and hierarchical. As the Church grew, it sought to establish clear lines of authority, with bishops and priests assuming control over religious practices and teachings. The lack of hierarchy in Gnostic communities posed a direct challenge to this developing order. After all, if individuals could reach Jesus and God directly, there would be no need for a structured hierarchical church, a notion that struck at the very heart of the Church's growing power, threatening to erode the authority it sought to establish. The Church's leaders understood that their power depended on maintaining control over the faithful, ensuring that spiritual authority flowed through the established hierarchy. This tension between the egalitarian practices of the Gnostics and the hierarchical structure of the Orthodox Church set the stage for a broader conflict, one that would determine the future of Christian ideology and authority. Among the early Christian Gnostics, several prominent leaders emerged, each with their own interpretations of the divine mysteries. These figures, shrouded in the shadows of history, played pivotal roles in shaping the Gnostic movement and its teachings. Basilides, an influential teacher in Alexandria during the early 2nd century, delved deeply into the complexities of Gnostic cosmology. He proposed a vast and intricate system of emanations, describing how divine beings descended from the highest God, creating layers of reality that ultimately led to the material world. Basilides taught that salvation came through the recognition of one's divine origin and the rejection of the material world's illusions. His teachings were compiled into several works, including a now-lost commentary on the Gospels and a collection of psalms. Valentinus, another prominent Gnostic leader, emerged in the mid-2nd century. He was a charismatic and persuasive figure, whose teachings attracted a significant following. Valentinus expanded upon the Gnostic cosmology, introducing the concept of the pleroma, the fullness of the divine realm. He described how Sophia's fall led to the creation of Yaldabaoth and the material world, and how the divine spark within humanity could be awakened through gnosis. His most notable works include the Gospel of Truth and the Gospel of Philip, which provide profound insights into his theological and philosophical views. The voices of Gnostic leaders like Basilides and Valentinus would echo through the ages, their teachings a testament to a forgotten chapter of Christian history. But the battle for the soul of Christianity was about to reach its climax. The stage was set for a fierce and relentless conflict, one that would shape the course of Christian history and determine the dominant narrative for centuries to come. As the Christian movement expanded, the drive for unity and doctrinal purity became increasingly urgent. The early church, scattered across vast regions and influenced by diverse interpretations of Jesus' teachings, faced the daunting task of consolidating its beliefs into a coherent and unified doctrine. This quest for unity was driven by a desire to establish a singular, authoritative voice that could guide the faithful and withstand external pressures from both paganism and the Roman state. To the Orthodox leaders, the Gnostic texts, with their rich symbolism and complex cosmology, were not just alternate beliefs but dangerous subversions. These writings could lead believers astray, away from the established doctrine and into what they perceived as spiritual chaos. The Church, therefore, embarked on a campaign to suppress these alternative teachings, aiming to root out heresy and reinforce the uniformity of Christian belief. Prominent church figures like the zealous Irenaeus of Lyons took up the mantle of defending orthodoxy against the perceived dangers of Gnosticism. In his extensive work against heresies, Irenaeus systematically attacked Gnostic beliefs, labeling them as distortions of true Christian doctrine. He proclaimed that the Church, with its apostolic succession, held the only legitimate interpretation of Jesus' teachings and that all other views were false and dangerous. The rise of orthodoxy was punctuated by a series of councils and synods where bishops and church leaders convened to debate and define the core tenets of Christian faith. These gatherings played a crucial role in establishing the official canon of the New Testament and delineating orthodox doctrine. The exclusion of Gnostic texts from the Bible was a deliberate act to solidify the Church's control over Christian theology, casting the Gnostic scriptures into the shadows. This campaign against Gnosticism was not merely theological, but also deeply political. The early Church sought to establish a unified front to gain legitimacy and influence within the Roman Empire. A fragmented and divided Christian community would have struggled to achieve the cohesion needed to thrive in a hostile environment. By condemning Gnostic beliefs and expelling them from the mainstream, the Orthodox Church aimed to present a singular, authoritative face to the world. As the conflict intensified, the suppression of Gnostic teachings became more systematic and severe. Gnostic texts were hunted down and destroyed, and their followers faced persecution. The once vibrant Gnostic communities were driven into secrecy, their wisdom hidden away in remote places, waiting for the day they might be rediscovered. This relentless drive for unity and doctrinal purity by the emerging Orthodox Church reshaped the landscape of early Christianity, setting the stage for further confrontations and the eventual consolidation of ecclesiastical power. The battle for the soul of Christianity had begun in earnest, with the forces of orthodoxy and Gnosticism locked in a struggle that would echo through the ages, a clash of ideologies that would forever alter the course of religious history. In the year 325 AD, under the shadow of an empire in flux, Emperor Constantine convened a gathering that would become one of the most pivotal moments in Christian history, the Council of Nicaea. This was no ordinary meeting, but a grand assembly of over 300 bishops and church leaders from across the vast Roman Empire, summoned to the ancient city of Nicaea, modern-day Iznik, Turkey. Constantine, a recent and politically astute convert to Christianity, sought to unify the fractious faith and cement his own rule with the divine endorsement of a cohesive church. The council opened with grand ceremony, the air thick with anticipation and tension. Among the key figures were Athanasius of Alexandria, a fervent defender of Trinitarian orthodoxy, and Arius, a priest from Alexandria, whose teachings had ignited a theological firestorm. Arius proposed that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, was not co-eternal with the Father, but a created being, a doctrine that struck at the heart of the traditional Trinitarian belief. The debates within the council were fierce, each argument sharpened to a razor's edge. Athanasius stood unwavering, proclaiming that Jesus was of the same substance as God the Father, an essential truth of the faith. Arius, with equal passion, argued for homoousios, asserting that the Son was of a similar but not identical substance. This seemingly minute difference in terminology masked a chasm in understanding the nature of Christ and the essence of divinity itself. Constantine, though not a theologian, understood the stakes. He loomed over the proceedings, not merely as a mediator, but as a force of imperial will, pressing for unity. A divided Christianity threatened the stability of his reign and the cohesion of his empire. His presence was a constant reminder that this council was not just a religious gathering, but a matter of statecraft and survival. After intense deliberations, marked by moments of high drama and whispered alliances, the council reached a climactic decision. The Nicene Creed was born, a declaration of faith that affirmed the co-eternity and consubstantiality of the Son with the Father. This creed was more than a statement of belief. It was a sword drawn in the theological battlefield, slashing through the heart of Arianism and other divergent views. The decisions of Nicaea sent shockwaves through the Christian world. The creed solidified the theological foundation of the Orthodox Church, casting those who held alternative beliefs into the shadows. The rich, complex cosmologies of the Gnostic texts were now deemed heretical, incompatible with the newly established orthodoxy. In the aftermath of the council, the campaign against Gnostic communities intensified. Armed with the authority of a unified creed, bishops and church leaders embarked on a mission to root out heresy, consolidating their power and enforcing doctrinal purity. The vibrant diversity of early Christianity began to fade, replaced by the singular vision of orthodoxy determined to snuff out the last embers of Gnostic thought. The Council of Nicaea was a watershed moment, a turning point where the fate of Christian orthodoxy was sealed with the strokes of a quill and the weight of imperial decree. It was a dramatic convergence of power, belief, and political maneuvering, where theological lines were drawn with a bold and unyielding hand. The echoes of this council would resonate through the centuries, its decisions cementing the path of orthodox doctrine while casting the rich, mystical traditions of Gnosticism into the shadows of history. In the aftermath of Nicaea, the persecution and suppression of Gnostic Christians began in earnest. The Orthodox Church, now armed with the authority of the Nicene Creed, set out to eradicate the heresies that threatened its newfound unity. The Gnostic texts, brimming with alternate cosmologies and profound spiritual insights, were declared dangerous and heretical, targeted for destruction. Across the Roman Empire, Gnostic communities faced increasing hostility. Bishops and church leaders ordered the systematic destruction of Gnostic writings. Sacred texts, which had been copied and cherished in secret, were hunted down and burned. The vibrant teachings of the Gnostics were driven underground, forced into hiding to escape the relentless purges. One poignant example of this persecution occurred in Alexandria, a city once known for its rich intellectual and spiritual diversity. Here, the followers of Basilides and Valentinus faced brutal crackdowns. Their gatherings were disrupted, their leaders imprisoned or exiled. Libraries containing Gnostic scriptures were raided, their precious contents reduced to ashes. Yet, despite the Church's efforts to obliterate these alternate teachings, whispers of Gnostic wisdom persisted. In hidden alcoves and remote sanctuaries, devoted followers risked their lives to preserve their sacred texts. They buried them in the sands of the desert or concealed them within the walls of monasteries, hoping that future generations might one day uncover their hidden truths. Centuries later, these hopes were realized in a remarkable discovery. In 1945, near the town of Nag Hammadi in Egypt, a collection of ancient manuscripts was unearthed. Known as the Nag Hammadi Library, this cache contained over 50 texts, many of which were Gnostic in origin. Among them were the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and the Apocryphon of John, texts that offered a glimpse into the rich spiritual landscape that had been nearly extinguished. The Nag Hammadi Library was a treasure trove of lost knowledge, revealing the depth and diversity of early Christian thought. It shed light on the suppressed traditions, providing scholars and seekers with invaluable insights into the Gnostic worldview. The discovery of these texts was nothing short of a revelation, rekindling interest in the mystical and esoteric dimensions of early Christianity. Centuries later, a new movement would arise, echoing the very principles that the Orthodox Church had sought to extinguish. In the 16th century, the Protestant Reformation swept across Europe, challenging the authority of the Catholic Church and reshaping the landscape of Christianity once again. At the heart of the Reformation was a revolutionary idea: the emphasis on a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Reformers like Martin Luther and John Calvin argued that individuals did not need an intermediary, such as the church or its priests, to connect with the divine. Instead, they believed that every believer could approach God directly through faith and the Scriptures. This emphasis on personal spirituality and direct communion with the divine bore a striking resemblance to the Gnostic principles that had been condemned as heresy more than a millennium earlier. Ironically, the very principles that the Orthodox Church had once denounced as heretical during its fierce campaign against Gnosticism were now being proclaimed as the foundation of a new Christian movement. The Protestant Reformation sought to dismantle the rigid hierarchical structures of the Catholic Church, much like the Gnostics had opposed the burgeoning orthodoxy of their time. However, by focusing on the personal gnosis of Jesus, but not including the demiurge in its beliefs, the Protestant movement faced ideological challenges in reconciling the nature of Christ with the God of the Old Testament. The Gnostics had explained the wrathful and jealous nature of the Old Testament God as the work of the demiurge, a false god who trapped humanity in the material world. Without this distinction, Protestants had to grapple with the apparent contradictions between the teachings of Jesus and the actions of the Old Testament God. To address this, Protestant reformers emphasized the continuity and unity of God's nature, arguing that the same God who created the world and delivered the laws to Moses also sent Jesus Christ as a Savior. They interpreted the harsh and punitive actions of the Old Testament God as part of a divine plan that culminated in the grace and redemption offered through Jesus. This theological stance sought to harmonize the perceived discrepancies, portraying the Old Testament God as just and righteous, whose ultimate purpose was fulfilled in the New Testament through Christ. The Reformation, however, was not a revival of Gnosticism. Instead, it underscored the enduring appeal of certain Gnostic ideas. The emphasis on personal spirituality, inner transformation, and direct communion with the divine continued to resonate with those who sought a deeper, more personal connection with God. It highlighted the irony that the principles once suppressed as dangerous heresy had found new life in the very heart of mainstream Christianity. The Protestant Reformation set the stage for a renewed exploration of individual faith and spiritual autonomy, echoing the ancient Gnostic call for personal enlightenment. The shadows of history revealed a profound continuity, a reminder that the quest for divine knowledge and a personal relationship with the divine had never truly been extinguished, even as the struggle to define the nature of God persisted. In the shadows of history, Gnostic ideas have persisted and evolved, finding new life in modern times. Despite centuries of suppression, the mystical and esoteric teachings of Gnosticism have continued to captivate seekers of hidden knowledge and spiritual enlightenment. Today, contemporary movements have embraced and reinterpreted Gnostic teachings, weaving them into the fabric of modern spirituality. One prominent example is the Ecclesia Gnostica, a contemporary Gnostic church that draws inspiration from ancient Gnostic texts and traditions. Founded by Stephan Holler, the Ecclesia Gnostica offers a spiritual path that emphasizes direct personal experience of the divine. Its teachings focus on inner transformation and the pursuit of gnosis, echoing the core principles of ancient Gnosticism. The church holds regular services, sacraments, and study groups, providing a community for those who seek to explore the mystical dimensions of Christianity. Another modern movement influenced by Gnostic ideas is the Order of the Gnostic Star, which integrates Gnostic teachings with elements of theosophy and Hermeticism. This organization seeks to uncover the hidden truths of the universe through a blend of spiritual practices, meditation, and study of esoteric texts. The Order of the Gnostic Star emphasizes the importance of personal revelation and the quest for higher knowledge, much like the Gnostics of old. The influence of Gnosticism can also be seen in the New Age movement, which embraces a wide array of spiritual practices and beliefs. New Age teachings often emphasize personal spiritual experience, the interconnectedness of all life, and the pursuit of higher consciousness. ideas that resonate deeply with Gnostic thought. Practices such as meditation, energy healing, and the exploration of mystical experiences are all part of the modern spiritual landscape, reflecting the enduring appeal of Gnostic principles. As we delve into the modern manifestations of Gnosticism, it becomes clear that the quest for hidden knowledge and personal enlightenment is a timeless pursuit. The ancient teachings of the Gnostics have not only survived, but have been reborn in new and diverse forms, continuing to inspire and guide those who seek to pierce the veil of material reality and glimpse the divine truth beyond. The impact of Gnostic ideas extends far beyond the confines of religious movements, deeply influencing Western philosophy, literature, and culture. These ancient teachings have woven themselves into the intellectual and creative fabric of the West, leaving an indelible mark that continues to shape thought and expression today. One of the most significant figures to explore Gnostic themes in modern times was the renowned psychologist Carl Jung. Jung's fascination with Gnosticism was profound, and he saw in its teachings a reflection of the deep archetypal truths of the human psyche. He believed that Gnostic myths and symbols represented universal aspects of the unconscious mind, revealing insights into the nature of the self and the process of individuation. Jung's work on the collective unconscious, archetypes, and the exploration of spiritual experiences drew heavily on Gnostic concepts, bridging the gap between ancient mysticism and contemporary psychology. Jung's exploration of Gnostic themes can be seen in his writings such as The Red Book, where he delves into his own mystical experiences and inner visions. He identified with figures like Simon Magus and Valentinus, seeing them as early explorers of the human soul. Jung's influence has brought Gnostic ideas into the realm of psychological inquiry, offering a profound understanding of the inner workings of the mind and the spiritual journey of self-discovery. Beyond psychology, Gnostic ideas have permeated Western literature and philosophy. The works of Philip K. Dick, for example, are suffused with Gnostic themes of reality, illusion, and the quest for hidden truth. In novels like Valis and The Divine Invasion, Dick grapples with questions of divine intervention, the nature of reality, and the struggle against deceptive powers, a modern retelling of the ancient Gnostic battle against the demiurge. In philosophy, the existentialist movement has echoes of Gnostic thought, particularly in its emphasis on individual experience, the search for meaning, and the confrontation with an often absurd and hostile world. Thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, though not explicitly Gnostic, explored themes that resonate with Gnostic concerns about the nature of existence and the human condition. The influence of Gnosticism extends to the arts, where its motifs of hidden knowledge and spiritual awakening appear in various forms. The Surrealist movement, with its exploration of the unconscious and the transcendence of ordinary reality, reflects Gnostic ideas of unveiling deeper truths. Artists like Salvador Dali and Max Ernst used dreamlike imagery to evoke the hidden dimensions of the psyche, much like the Gnostics sought to reveal the hidden dimensions of the divine. In contemporary culture, Gnostic themes continue to captivate audiences through film, music, and popular media. Movies like The Matrix draw directly from Gnostic concepts of a false reality and the awakening to a higher truth. The narrative of Neo's journey mirrors the Gnostic quest for gnosis, breaking free from the illusory world created by the demiurge-like machines. The persistent presence of Gnostic ideas in Western thought highlights their enduring relevance and profound impact. From the depths of the unconscious explored by Carl Jung to the imaginative realms of literature and art, Gnosticism offers a lens through which to examine the mysteries of existence and the human spirit. Its influence reminds us that the search for hidden knowledge and spiritual enlightenment is a journey that transcends time, continually inspiring new generations to seek the light within the shadows. The stories of Yaldabaoth, Sophia, and the Gnostic Christ continue to captivate and inspire seekers of truth. These ancient tales, filled with cosmic drama and profound spiritual insights, resonate deeply with those who yearn for a direct and personal connection with the divine. Yaldabaoth, the arrogant and ignorant creator, embodies the darkness that traps humanity in the material world. His story is a cautionary tale of false divinity, illustrating the dangers of deception and the corrupting power of ignorance. The image of Yaldabaoth, often depicted with the face of a lion and the body of a serpent, serves as a powerful symbol of the false gods that still exist in various forms: oppressive systems, corrupt authorities, and the pervasive illusions of the material world. His story reminds us of the importance of seeking true enlightenment, breaking free from the chains of ignorance that bind our souls. Sophia, the divine feminine, represents the light of wisdom and the quest for spiritual knowledge. Her tragic fall and subsequent redemption echo the human journey of striving for understanding and the inevitable mistakes made along the way. Sophia's descent into the material world and her desperate attempts to correct her errors are deeply moving, symbolizing the soul's struggle to remember its divine origin and return to the light. Her story inspires seekers to embrace their own quest for wisdom, to learn from their missteps, and to strive for spiritual awakening. The Gnostic Christ, distinct from the Orthodox portrayal, is a revealer of hidden truths. He is not just a savior, but a guide who leads humanity out of the darkness imposed by Yaldabaoth. The Gnostic Christ teaches that salvation comes through gnosis, personal, direct knowledge of the divine. This figure of Christ is a beacon of hope, encouraging seekers to look beyond the surface of the material world and discover the profound spiritual truths that lie within. The enduring influence of these stories lies in their powerful call for direct, personal knowledge of the divine. They challenge us to question the nature of reality, to look beyond the illusions created by false authorities, and to seek a deeper, more authentic connection with the divine. The quest for gnosis, for true spiritual enlightenment, is a timeless journey that transcends cultural and historical boundaries. In modern times, these stories continue to inspire a diverse array of spiritual seekers. From mystics and philosophers to artists and writers, the tales of Yaldabaoth, Sophia, and the Gnostic Christ offer a rich source of inspiration and guidance. They remind us that the struggle between light and darkness, ignorance and enlightenment, is an eternal one, and that the quest for divine knowledge is a path that each must walk for themselves.